Alright, so before we get this video started, there is something I need to address regarding a video that I made a couple of weeks ago, and a little bit of a mistake that I made in it. It was the video about whether or not Pearl has been rebooted with a rejuvenator at some point prior to the events of Steven Universe the movie, based on the title of the song that she sang after she was rebooted. The song was structured like a file name, and I said that it implied that there had been 3 versions of Our Pearl, when really, some of you guys pointed out, it would have implied that there were 4. And I gotta say, I am super embarrassed to not have caught that myself, because it meant that I wasn't able to theorize about what that 4th version of Pearl was talking about in that video. And honestly, thinking about it, unless it's something as simple as they like boot up each new Pearl to test it and then reboot it when they give it to its original owner, which frankly is just really boring as an answer, I honestly don't know what that 4th version of Pearl could be. So anyone who has some idea of what that 4th version of Pearl could be, please let me know. I'll even feature your response in the next video that I make, which includes a segment following up on this particular theory. That said, I want to address this particular video and the fact that yes, I made a list last week as well. Not that any of you saw it, since the video was taken down by an unlawful copyright strike. Link to a Dailymotion version of the video in the description down below, in case you guys want to check it out. But yes, I did make a list last week, and I'm making another list this week. There's really no reason why I'm putting 2 lists back to back. It's just what I felt like doing. That said, whereas that was a very formal list, this is not. This is just kind of for fun. It's not serious at all, which might bum some of you guys out, because the title definitely makes it seem like it's more serious than it actually is. But the fact of the matter is, I just wanted to do something lighthearted in regards to the movie, and this is what came to mind first, which is basically how I structured the list too. I essentially just sat down and thought, what would I actually criticize about this movie, aside from serious stuff like the themes? Not that I actually criticized the themes, because I actually thought the themes in the movie worked really well, but that's beside the point. And then I typed out the first 5 things that came to mind. So, starting with number 5. I'm over the whole the diamonds are being redeemed, even though it seemed for a while like they couldn't be redeemed thing. The show sold me well enough on the fact that the diamonds themselves were victims of the system that they had created, and that the one with the real power, that being White Diamond, genuinely didn't understand how terrible a person she was and how damaging all the things that she was doing actually were. And I will say flat out, and this is why this is only number 5, that the show might address this particular issue with flashbacks of what happened during that time skip, because I know that stuff happened during the 2-year time skip to change the diamonds, but man, I got total mood whiplash going from the still creepy and still really weird and only tentatively peaceful diamonds of Change Your Mind to the, let's face it, goofy diamonds that we got in the movie. Like, again, I get that stuff happened during that time skip, which explains this. Even if we never learn what that stuff is, stuff did happen, but it was still jarring, and so I'm picking at it a little bit, because it is a nitpick of mine. Though I will say, I want to praise the movie very briefly for sticking those inverted Diamond Authority insignias into the backgrounds to let us know that the other diamonds are under Steven now, even though I doubt he's doing much governing, really. And it's not like I don't think that the other diamonds are doing anything anymore, but they certainly shouldn't be in charge of the Gempire overall anymore, redemption or not. Going into number 4, let's talk about the Rejuvenator. As a concept, it's a really interesting weapon, and one that fits right in with Homeworld's technology as sort of an upgraded version of the stabilizer weapons, but that's not really what it is, at least not according to the lore that we got for it in the movie. According to the movie, it's an older version of the same device, considering that the stabilizer tech was new enough that the crystal gems didn't recognize it when it was used on them in the return. And like, the movie implies just enough about the device that you can explain away all these issues, and I've been defending the movie and the fact that the weapon was included in the movie in the comment sections on my videos and even a little bit in the videos themselves. But the fact of the matter is, as much as I can rationalize these questions away, they are questions that the movie left open, and I would like to see them addressed somewhere, even if it's just clarification from the crew on Twitter or something. And honestly, these are only some of them. These are only the ones that I think are the most pressing myself. I'm sure you guys have some other questions regarding the weapon in mind yourselves. First of all, why is it so easy to undo the effect? Like, maybe this is why rejuvenators aren't actually in use anymore, to the point that they're so rare that an Era 2 tech gem wouldn't even recognize one. But Steven managed to undo the effects of the rejuvenator very quickly, within just a couple of hours. And we're talking like for multiple gems here, including Spinel, who he restored almost entirely just by accident. So it's not like you have to know something about the gem's previous life to actually bring him back. They just have to be reminded of it, even just tangentially, for long enough. Again, this might be why the rejuvenators fell out of favor, and that's what I've been thinking to rationalize this question away, but that really seems like the kind of flaw that Homeworld wouldn't build into their tech in the first place, something they would have tested for early on, you know? Then there is the question of how it's possible that the crystal gems didn't recognize the stabilizer tech when it was pulled on them in return, if something that's effectively just a stabilizer tech has existed since before the war. Unless the destabilizer wands are just so radically different from the destabilizer tech that they encountered back before the war that they didn't recognize it in that form. The fact that it existed at all back that early on in the timeline seems to be a plot hole. And for that matter, why weren't rejuvenators used during the war, if only just to easily poof enemy gems? Like, it's possible that they were, and we've just never happened to see one in a flashback ever, but then you have to question how it's possible that Pearl and Garnet didn't recognize it when Spinel drew it on. Like, as I've said multiple times at this point, there's definitely ways to rationalize around this and explain it away as not being a plot hole, but it definitely seems like it might be a plot hole, and I would like to see these questions addressed for that one simple reason. Number 3 is kind of a goofy one, and that's, how was it that Steven managed to also fuse his and Greg's guitars when he and Greg fused? Like, it's been implied up to this point, because Steven doesn't fuse clothes with the people he fuses with, that even though he can break down his own body and the body of another human into energy and merge them, that he can't do the same thing for objects. Though the more I think about it, we do see gems breaking things down into energy to store them inside the pocket dimensions tied to their gemstones all the time, so maybe breaking things down into energy is just a thing that gems can do, and that it's actually an application of that technology which lets Steven fuse with humans, and he's just used it on an object for the first time here. Like, even excluding that thought that I literally just had while filming this video, this is more on the nitpick side than it is on the criticism side, but it's still something that I find really interesting to think about, as this may be the first time that Steven has used a specific power. So for that reason, I consider it to be worth talking about. Number 2 is one that I'm sure everyone guessed was going to be on this list when they realized what the list was actually going to be about, since it's one that I've talked about before, so I'm not going to dwell on it for too long. But that's the question of where Spinel got all that cool stuff from. Like, yeah, I have theorized about this quite a bit, as have other theorists who watch the show, so there's a decent chance that somebody somewhere has worked out what the actual answer is, but it's also still possible that we haven't yet, and if we haven't, then what is the answer? Because Spinel just having those things in the short time period between when she saw that message and when she arrived on Earth doesn't actually make sense. Like, plot-wise, this is my only major complaint with the movie, aside from number 1 on this list, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Like, I can buy just barely that Spinel would be able to outfight the 3 core crystal gems at least long enough to hit them with the rejuvenator. Seeing as how she was both pissed off and under the effect of a +5 singing modifier, and also the crystal gems seemed to be defending more than they were attacking, and also they lampshaded the whole situation with the fact that Amethyst, and by extension Pearl and Garnet, were rusty after 2 years of not having to fight anybody. But the question of where Spinel got her injector and her toxin and her rejuvenator from wasn't even given a cursory explanation. There weren't really even any hints in the movie as to where that stuff came from, aside from the hints that I already alluded to by mentioning that people have been theorizing about this since the movie dropped. Like, I'm not mad about it, I'm not mad about any of these things, but this one does bug me more than most of the rest. Though, number one, for some reason, and I can't really explain why, does bug me more. Number one being the question of, where was the cluster during all of this? Like, I joked about it on my Tumblr, saying that she just slept through the whole thing, because that's funny. But seriously, wouldn't the damage that the injector was causing have woken her up? Considering how big she is and considering how deep down she would have to be, attacking one spot near Beach City wouldn't really be all that different than attacking another spot near Beach City, at least not from the cluster's own perspective. So what Spinel was doing wouldn't have been functionally any different than what the Diamonds did when the cluster formed for the first time to fight them. So wouldn't the damage have woken her up? And even if it didn't, couldn't Steven have just astral projected down there to wake her up himself? His primary goal throughout the movie, aside from saving his friends from amnesia, was moving the freaking injector, and that's definitely a thing that the cluster would have been able to do. Like, I get it. This is a writing out Superman kind of situation. The presence of the cluster would have solved their problems too quickly, and we wouldn't have had a movie, but there needed to be some explanation in there for why the cluster didn't get involved. Even just the kind of offhanded explanation that Lapis came up with for why Steven shouldn't contact the Diamonds right away. Something on that level. Something. Anything, but we didn't get it. Again, I'm not sure why this one annoys me more than the rest of the things on this list, and annoys is the right word. I want to remind you guys that none of these actually make me angry. I still think the movie works really well overall, but this does annoy me more than the other things on this list, which is why it's number one. Now, I'm sure that there are plenty more things that you could criticize this movie about, legitimately or not, and there are certainly more things that you could nitpick it over, but again, these are just the first 5 things that came to mind when I sat down to write out the script for this video. That said though, first of all, what did you guys think of the list, of course, but also, what would your list be? What are the first 5 things that come to your own mind when you think of criticisms of this movie that maybe don't quite make you mad? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, and also while you guys are down there in the comments, it's probably worth it to let you know at this point in time that I'm currently in the market for a replacement for my avatar, which I use in some of my videos. Virtual AJ, you'll recognize him as the character that I use to reenact all the more exciting things that happen in my life, since I can't record most of them, considering how they take place in space and all. I really love the avatar I've been using. It was a gift from one of my viewers, but I've been looking to upgrade it for a while now, so if you have any suggestions regarding who I might be able to commission to upgrade my avatar, I'd really appreciate it. Drop a suggestion in the comment section down below, or on my Tumblr, or over on the Discord, the links to both of which are in the description down below. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.